Hi guys, so today I am back to do part 2 of my January, February, March film wrap up, TV wrap up thing. This part is going to be including TV shows that I watched, like series I finished, and any documentaries that I felt like watching, stuff that just falls in my mind into like the TV category. So in January, much like for the films, I only watched like one full season. That was American Horror Story Apocalypse, which I gave a 5-star. This was a wild ride. Literally one episode in, I was already getting like moderate anxiety. I was actually glad when it took on more of like a supernatural direction, which I wasn't expecting, and if it wasn't causing me unease like to begin with, like with all the apocalypse and that, I would have been mad about, but because of the way it was making me feel, it was almost like a relief that it sort of changed direction. I did hear that this season had quite a lot of obvious connections from prior series, like those connections were going to come into play quite a bit, but I wasn't expecting that ending for the 3rd episode at all, as well as what was to become. Proper shocking. They had a little bit of conversation about female dominance, and I thought that was a really interesting, like, topical conversation thing to bring up within such a fictional, fantasized sort of world or storyline, I guess. The characters that I initially thought were going to be the main characters, it took a complete different turn. They were only like part of the story, but it sort of did a 360 turn and everything still connected back in a way. Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have followed them more because I thought they were going to be like the main characters for the whole thing, but I like where it went. A little quote here. It says, "I always thought the world would end in fire and ice, not witches and warlocks." That really made me laugh. I thought that was very fitting for the whole scenario. It was perfect. I'd like a t-shirt with that on, actually. Hoped that there was going to be a singing episode, so I was really happy when we somewhat got that. It was a more traditional, like, an aware concert, not that like random musical burst which I like from what was it, American Horror Story Asylum, like that. I loved that, but it satisfied that desire, I suppose. I don't know how I didn't recognise Michael's surname to begin with. Like, as soon as episode 5 hinted at where we might be going for the next episode, it finally clicked and I was like, whoa, how is this, what's gonna happen, where's the connection? I was enraptured, is that the word? I've got to say, a lot of the actors really act a younger age very, very well. Like, Michael's like a 30-odd-year-old man, like his actor's a 30-odd-year-old man, but he was going back, specifically in like flashbacks, and acting like a 15-16-year-old, and I think it worked, honestly. Not just for Michael's character, but for a lot of the other characters. I'm shocked at their real ages because they can really pull off such a wide spectrum. Overall, I really did enjoy this. I love how the plot twisted and the overall ending was fantastic. I cannot wait to see what comes next. I think a lot of people were saying that like a NASA space one was going to be this season, and it turned out to be Apocalypse. I would quite like some sort of space season. I'm pretty sure people made like a hoax advertisement for it, but I don't know, I'd like that. As you can tell, NASA, I'd like to see something like that. Then going into February, first thing I watched was Netflix's I cannot pronounce his last name, Leguizamo's Latino History for Morans, and this was like a stand-up comedy sort of thing, which I gave 4 stars. It's listed as a comedy, which it is, but it was so inspiring. I wasn't expecting the depth that it was going to go into amongst all the humour. Really educational and very uplifting as well. I just didn't realise how much the Caribbean was infused with Latino blood. You know, I didn't realise that was embedded in the roots as well. Pushed me to learn even more about Jamaican culture, specifically in terms of Caribbean and Cuban as well, obviously. I'm part Jamaican and Cuban, and I just didn't realise how much influence like the Latino heritage was entwined with Caribbean stuff. Fascinated me. I feel like I should have known this, but it was never something that I guess brought up around. I didn't realise. Honestly though, I was so shocked at how much I enjoyed this. He's the guy that plays Sid in Ice Age, but he's so much more than Sid, and I'm gutted that I didn't know more about this guy before now, basically. And then this takes us into March, where I've watched the most things. So I watched Abducted in Plain Sight, which was a 2017 documentary on Netflix. I don't really have a rating for this. I don't feel necessarily comfortable rating these kind of documentaries anymore, just because when it's like a tragic real life story, rating that And I feel almost to an extent the same for books as well, but books have more, in my opinion, because that's more what I'm into, has more of a critical value. This sounds really cold-hearted. I'm trying to explain it the best I can. But when you're seeing it in a film, documentary, and you're seeing what people went through, I feel like I can't rate it. I hope that makes sense. Probably sounded really weird trying to describe that. But anyway, so I watched the first 20 minutes or so with my boyfriend, but it made him feel sick, so I had to continue it on my own. Understandable that it does go into some dark places about what happened and all this stuff, so totally respect him for that. Like, yeah. This was just honestly a really wacky story to hear. If someone had randomly just told this to me, and even when I saw like loads of people talking about it on Facebook and that, there's memes of the dad, and for the extent I didn't really realise it was an actual documentary. Again, if someone just randomly told this to me, I'd think they were like telling me a made up story, but this actually happened, and it's just bonkers. I have got to say, I can't believe how gullible and naive the parents were in this whole situation, and everyone in terms of child predators. They just weren't aware. I guess it was really interesting to learn that at that time these things, they just weren't things that people necessarily thought of, especially in such a close-knit community where everyone sort of trusted each other. They were like the neighbours that you'd go around to borrow some sugar from, that sort of thing. So in that respect, yeah, you can kind of get it, and I don't know, but at the same time, surely you would understand from gut instinct that something's not right, possibly, especially when your children's concerned. I don't know. It made me so sad, but also really sickened to see how easily this predator managed to worm his way into this family's lives, and the damage he caused. But it's even worrying still that the parents, after seeing things were done that shouldn't have been done, continued to let him in. How he managed to get into their heads and manipulated them and done sexual activities with it was just with everyone. It was crazy. After that, it was still like a reluctance from the parents' end to actually want to do anything, to actually want to get help from the police. I think that's what shocked me the most. Their somewhat allowance of this at the time. The remorse they have about the actions they didn't take during that time really hurt my soul. But at the same time, it's like they could have done better, but they know that they could have done better, and it's something they can't change, you know what I mean? The story's crazy. I never heard anything like it, so if you haven't somehow seen Abducted in Plain Sight yet, definitely check it out if you can stomach that sort of stuff. It's crazy, it really is. And then I watched another series. This is called Kiss Me First. It was season 1, and I gave this a 4.5 stars. So it's like a drama, mystery, thriller, sci-fi-ish, I guess, that aired on Channel 4 back in April 2018, consisting of 6 episodes. So it's a fairly short show. I could have gotten to it earlier than I did. I just didn't. So I decided to watch this on my tablet instead of the TV, because I knew that the recording was going to get deleted, because we were having like the Virgin Media upgrade our boxes and stuff, and we couldn't take recordings and, you know, swap it over to the next box. It just completely wiped it for some reason. So it wasn't able to transfer any of the recordings. So I thought, I'm going to watch as much stuff that I can now before they're gone, and this was one of those. So I'm glad that I got the push to watch it, because from my rating you can tell I really did enjoy it. So when I saw the trailer initially, it gave me like Ready Player One vibes, of which I love the idea, but I haven't explored that much in terms of, you know, virtual reality gaming, being so involved in a game, stuck in a game, things like that. I hadn't explored it that much, but I like the idea of it. But I thought it would focus more on like a romance, specifically what looked like a female relationship, which is cool, but it wasn't that at all. And after looking on Twitter, quite a few people were a little bit outraged at its, I guess, false advertisement of that, because if you watch the trailers, it does look like there is going to be something, and there is sort of like a tension, a chemistry between those characters in the show, but it's not to the extent that the trailers make you believe. I hate it when things do that. Like sometimes you get movie trailers and you see a specific scene and it's not in the final film. Like for example, there was a scene, Ghost in the Shell, where our main character was kissing some girl in the trailer, and I was like, okay, cool. The film, it wasn't in there. I don't know if it was cut out of that part, but it was in the extended film when it got DVD release. But anyway, I just don't like it when they try to lure you that way. It looks like a good film anyway. You don't need to throw in shock factor and then not live up to it. I'm going on a rampant, ignore me. Anyway, it's based on a book too, which I didn't know until like halfway through, because I didn't pay attention to the fact that it said based on a book by blah 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 of the same name. So that's cool. The music fit perfectly for this show. It was so beautifully acted, and I really loved how detailed the virtual world was as well. We did get quite a lot of scenes in that world, and it looked amazing. I love how softly spoken our main character is. I think she's called Leela. She makes me want to listen, you know. She's got a quiet voice that in a way has some sort of command. You kind of want to hear what she has to say. The characters we meet have a lot of bad stuff going on in their personal lives, so it was really interesting to see how their real lives are as to how they sort of perceive themselves in the virtual reality game. Except there's one thing that bothers me. I can't imagine how some of these characters in really bad home situations have all this expensive equipment, because the system that they use is quite specialist, and you've got to have a really good computer to be able to run that, in my opinion. Even though she manages to run it on one of these random like shops, I don't know how that works, but it looks like it would take a lot out of your computer basically, and also the headset and everything like that are expensive. So I don't understand how they manage to afford it from people that have come in from lower incomes and stuff like that, and like really broken homes where they're being treated horribly. I don't understand how they're able to actually access this stuff. So that little thing sort of sparks my attention. Like, that doesn't quite make sense. I don't know if I'm just being silly thinking that way, but I don't know. So the way Tess and Leela become friends is actually really creepy. I wasn't too keen on the start of that. At first it was kind of like all mysterious and kind of cool, but it took on like a stranger danger sinister tone. It didn't really expand much more than that between their friendship in terms of the sinisterity, or I'm just making words up, but it was an uncomfortable beginning because she was like lurking, and it was weird. The plot itself wasn't exactly what I was thinking at all, really. It was more cult-like, suspenseful, very creepy in atmosphere than I thought it would be. I didn't assume it would be anything like that, and it was much more than just a VR game. Like, it delved into so many different deeper topics, so definitely trigger warnings for that if you do decide to check out the show, of course. There was a little message at the end of one of the shows. Well, it was at the end of every episode, but I noticed it like at the end of the first one. It was like, if any issues came up, contact channel 4 support, and it was said after each episode, but I'm guessing they're speaking about the trauma and, like, you know, just suicidal triggers and stuff in this show. But it's the coldest way I've ever heard a studio say, we have support for you if you're feeling this way, if you were uncomfortable by the scenes. It just felt so cold, and I was like, okay, thanks, I feel like I can talk to you. Not. Okay, this is an amazing show. A little confusing at times, but it definitely was immersive and kept me on edge. Like, I wanted to know what was happening next. Is a second season confirmed? I'm not too sure. It feels like there could be one, but it also feels like it just could be a really open ending. So if they don't get the rights to make another season, it would somewhat be okay for it to end just like that, because there's a promise that they're going on to do other things, but not necessarily things that we as viewers will see, you know. So anyway, after that I watched another kind of sad documentary. That was Leaving Neverland, 2019. Again, no rating for this one. I can't rate this sort of thing. I had my drink. I just scratched off most of my black lipstick. Can you see? Fun times, fun times. So this documentary had so much backlash and praise. It was really controversial. So I actually heard about it a few months prior to its release, because I have a cousin who is obsessed with Michael Jackson, and so obviously his opinions are very against what the documentary says, but I wanted to form my own views, check it out for myself. It's basically about the relationship Michael Jackson had with two young boys, and their story of how they say he groomed him and basically sexually assaulted them continuously over multiple years. Yeah, so how he molested them, which is disgusting to think about, but I think these sort of things actually happen. I didn't think it was going to be so polished in its production. I was concerned that it would take away from what was being said if it looked too like staged and well produced, if you know what I mean. But not at all. I think the fact that it was embedded with live performances and sort of private footage and stuff, that sort of stuff brought back the fact that no, this is real life, this is what's being said happened, it's not some Hollywood documentary, which is kind of what it was looking like from the trailer. I guess you could say these other little bits of footage put in added to its authenticity, which you can say is a good or bad thing depending on your viewpoint. People who don't believe will think it's an attractive presentation that will brainwash people into siding against Michael Jackson and believing these claims, while people that already do believe in these claims will probably hope that it convinces others about it too. So depending on your viewpoint, I guess that's where it will lie. My heart does definitely go out to not only Michael Jackson's family, obviously having to deal with all of this being said. I mean, it's difficult to say, because if someone is doing something they're not supposed to be doing, and the family is going to get the backlash, but if the family is innocent and they've not done anything to deserve all this abuse that they're kind of second-handedly getting, it's not fair. But of course I feel so much deep sympathy and pain for the people that have said they've been abused. How traumatic it must be, you know, crazy. I know anyone can be an abuser, even if you do have kids or go on to have kids, but I do feel really bad for Michael Jackson's kids as well. They have to grow up with this legacy of kind of being in the shadow of this great performer, but also being in the wake of all these seedy, disgusting things that have come out about him. Whether they're true or not, I don't know, I'm not a judge in that, but just the words that everybody has heard must really impact them. I don't know. As I mentioned, I have no opinion whether it's truth or not. Well, I can't judge, I'm not in that situation, you know. But I do feel for those who are hurting and have been wronged in these sort of situations. I was shocked that there were plans for a part 2 of the documentary. I thought it was just going to be boom, that's it. But there's going to be more, so I will definitely watch the follow-up. I want to quickly mention Lady Gang on E! Yeah, as I thought, it's not for me. It just sounds like a group of ladies on a talk show trying to be relatable but coming across as really pretentious. I got literally like 6 minutes into an episode because I started recording it, and yeah, after that I was just so annoyed and irritated and just irked off that I cancelled my series link and deleted that episode. So maybe I didn't give it a long enough chance, but you know when you know something's not for you? It's one of those situations. Anyway, those are all the TV shows, documentaries, a bit of stand-up comedy that I watched during the first 3 months of the year. I will come back and do some more of these in another 3 months most likely. I think I might like splitting them in films and TV shows, but it depends on how much I've got to review. So the next time I do it, it might all be together, it might not, who knows. Let me know if you have a preference and perhaps I'll do it that way. I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've been watching any of these things that I mentioned, what you thought of them. If you have any suggestions of things for me to check out, TV, films, whatever, then leave them in the comments down below, and I shall speak to you in another video soon. Bye.